Guten Tag, wie geht's? I'm Chris Burgess with Premier Guitar. We're at the Frankfurt Musikmesse, and the man next to me needs no introduction, one of the greatest guitar players around, Joe Satriani. Joe, how are you?
Very good.
There's a lot of excitement about yesterday's MIPA award for the best guitar effect, the Vox Satchurator.
Yeah.
How's it feel?
That was a very funny event,
Yeah.
especially with Steve Lukather pulling that little joke on
Yes,
us.
yeah.
That's great. You know, he was standing next to me before as we were waiting, and I said something like, oh, "These are very unusual events," you know, and I'd never really attended one before. And he said, "Oh," he looks at me and he goes, "You know, Joe, you never know what's going to happen at these events." And I'm thinking, that's a funny thing to say. Little did I know that he was going to jump on stage, you know. But anyway, yeah, well, very proud to represent the Vox Satchurator at that event. It's always great when you get recognized for all your hard work. So.
The people at Vox and Chord were telling us about how deeply involved you were in every aspect of designing this pedal.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm kind of curious about, maybe you could tell us a little about the process of how you got the characteristics you were looking for, how you zeroed in on those tones.
You know, hours. Mike Bradley and Masahiro Lee would come over. Both of those guys, guitar players. We would have a variety of amps set up in my basement. We'd have distortion pedals everywhere. I mean, it was just a mess of cables and pedals and stuff. Lots of guitars. We had, you know, everybody's favorite. We had vintage guitars, new guitars, and we would just play and play until we couldn't hear the difference between 2K or 20K or whatever. You know, we would just drive ourselves crazy. But that's what it took, really, because there's so much that you want out of a distortion box, out of any effects box, and the only way to really see if it's good is you have to put it through its paces and feel it. And then you have to hand the guitar to your friend and say, now you play it and I'll just listen. And I'll give you my impression. And then you build a consensus of what's working and what's not. And Masahiro Lee, as the engineer, would come with, you know, his suitcase like a doctor with every little diode, transistor, and everything. He'd set up his whole thing on a desk. And every time we would sit there and we'd say, well, it needs a little bit more, you know, angst, and I wish it would squeeze more. He'd think about it, and he'd say, all right, give me 10 minutes. And he'd go over there, and he'd be pulling out components, and then we'd always have, you know, control pieces, and then pieces where he wouldn't tell me where things were changed, because we, you know, you sometimes just a suggestion can play with your mind.
We heard that you were able to identify specific resistors.
Yes.
And then at one point you were hearing clipping that they couldn't find until they hooked it up to a scope.
Yeah. It's a disease. It's not a talent. But yeah, that's, you know, the distortion is funny, right? Because it's distorting, right? You're clipping, but there's good clipping and bad clipping. There's clipping that helps music and guitar, and then there's the clipping that doesn't. So, and there are all these components out there that, on paper, you know, will, you know, give a certain sound. Will do the clipping. Will give you gain. Will do this. You know, provide resistance. But they all have a character, and not only do they have a character individually, but when they interact with each other in different ways. And that just takes time. So it took over a year and all those prototypes, and we didn't rush. It's not like we plugged it in and said, that's no good. I'd give it time, I'd record with it, play a few shows with it, and then I'd say, this is what happened on tour with this box. This is what we need to solve, you know. And we just kept at it. Tenacity is the name of the game.
Sounds like you had a lot of fun, though, too.
I loved it. I mean, to have your own pedal is really exciting.
The line is expanded now. You've got the Time Machine delay,
yes,
and the Big Bad Wah.
Yeah.
More fun? Is there more in store?
Yes. We have two pedals that are just about complete. I would say they'd be hopefully ready by the end of the year. And I'm not supposed to say what they are, but I can give a hint, and just by saying that I'm still pursuing my original idea to go with tried and true necessary tools for the guitar player. So that's why I started with distortion, wah-wah delay. These are the things you just have to have, and no matter what kind of a gig you've got. And so I'm continuing with those, and there's a good, I don't know, 6 or 7 pedals that I think are must-haves for people. And I just want to take our time with it. We're not rushing, and there's no reason to rush these things out. And,
sure.
But we each time we make a headway in one department, it's a celebration. It's a victory. It really is, because it's not easy to make a great pedal. It really isn't. And there are too many horrible pedals out there.
Yeah.
Just too many. So I don't want to be in that category ever. So we're just going to take our time.
Okay. I want to ask you a little bit about Chickenfoot.
Sure.
I know you got a record coming out in about a month, I guess.
Yes.
Our friend Niels Lozauer shot your first show. He said
Yeah.
it looked like you guys were having a great time.
Yeah.
It's been fun so far.
It's always been fun. It's just been a wild ride. When the four of us get together, there's just so much energy going back and forth. It's just great.
So what are the plans for the summer then?
We have a couple of tours, actually. We're doing a little sort of record release party tour in the U.S. towards like middle to the end of May. We'll just do some small club shows, you know, press/fan events. And then we come over here to Europe and we do a month of festivals with a couple of solo shows thrown in, not many, maybe 4 or 5. And then we get back to the U.S. and we have some U.S. and Canadian festivals to do. That'll take us from mid-July all the way through to the end of September. And then right now we're seeing that as a break point, and I'm not sure what's going to happen after that.
Sounds great. Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Busy guy.
Yes, it's good to be busy.
Well, thank you very much for giving us a chance to visit with you.
All right, my pleasure.
Joe Satriani. I'm Chris Burgess. You're watching PremierGuitar.com.